man, I've had such a busy day today. It's nearly midnight now. And I've been working. I'm wrapping up my term time with head of year work and working with different students towards completing their submissions for hand-in. So I've been doing a lot of educational stuff today. I also uploaded my first Creative Life archive video yesterday, which I've had some great responses on, and just a few people have said that they could kind of resonate with the energy of the person that I interviewed, which was really cool. I'm also realising it's, as much as this is research towards my end goal of building a practical, tooled platform framework, that within the interview process and it all being documented in real time, it's allowing the artists that I interview to be empowered and a platform for them to share their projects, and beautiful projects that these artists are working on. And in doing that, it connects them to other artists who may be interested in getting involved, and it also removes this, it kind of turns maybe some shame into empowerment. And by that I mean sometimes conversations when we're talking about how we live inside our artistry can bring up a little bit of shame, because we feel like, you know, maybe things aren't working or things are breaking down and it's an us problem as a creative. But this whole research-backed project is making me realise that it's just a structural problem. It's a system issue, it's a systemic problem, not so much purely, person to person. Of course, we have choices that we can make to either build a life that is sustainable or a life that's purely chaotic with no sustainability and difficulty. But the structures in place do not support artists and creative people and people that tend to live outside the systems that are offered to us, you know. And I also spoke to a family member who I don't speak to often, but they have an educational background for many years and have done a PhD, and they listened to my webinar and then they reflected back to me that what I'm effectively doing without even realising is a research-led doctorate. It's like a PhD, it's like a dissertation PhD that I'm doing or proposing without even realising. I have no educational background at that level. I have, obviously I'm within the education world, but that's because of a lifetime of so far of experience in my field. Within music, it's not to do with being an academic at all. I've never considered myself to be academic. And when my family member said that, as they are a very academic person, I was like, wow, I've never considered myself to be academic, even though I work in education. It's always been, you know, more so passion-led and doing-led rather than academia, you know. But I have to admit they are right, you know. If I'm getting such a joy from having a big question, a big cultural, impactful, system questioning question, and then I am driven to do research to find the answer, and I'm also driven to create a framework that fixes the problem. That's like PhD vibes, and I didn't realise that that's what I was doing. So that was actually a really and then I had these questions in my head like, well, then do I actively have a container of a PhD to do this in before I then go on to, you know, offer books and courses and mentorship, or I might be doing that alongside, but do I actually do a PhD, and then I realised that wouldn't be being authentic and honest with myself. I have never fit inside the systems from an educational perspective. I have done within my current role because of the amount of freedom compared to other educational establishments. My God, like there's a lot of, it's a music college, there's a lot of freedom. So I worry that if I were to do this in a PhD container, because this is like my soul, this question is my soul, I worry that I would get a feeling of being trapped, because you also have to have a supervisor when you have a PhD. If you're asking a big question, there's this iterative process that I would be doing anyway myself, but there's this person that would kind of bounce ideas off you and then question your thinking, which I'm assuming is maddening and important. But I can find that supervisor energy outside of a PhD container. So what I think I'll probably do is continue to do this path of iterative research. I've got a database for it. I'm finding it very enjoyable to do it. I find it very easy to structure my work. I'm incredibly disciplined with the forward motion of this project for now. And I feel like if I do start to feel not disciplined, that's when I'd probably get more of a mentor involved so I can continue the work in a structured way. But I am thinking, actually, I probably don't need it at this stage. But it could be that I do my own research. I look into ways that I can make it as robust as I can. And then when it gets to a point where the framework is built and there's a community building and there's starting to be an understanding and respect for my work, then as I'm stepping into the next lane, next level, that's when I could maybe see if it could be PhD approved. And I obviously keep coming back to it as an example, but things like The Artist's Way or the academic research that Brené Brown did into vulnerability and shame, and their path was very much PhD first, book second, but the reason that they made such an impact was because of the latter. It wasn't anything to do with, like, the PhD was just the container, and I don't need someone slapping me on the wrist to do it, or an institution to go to. I'm going to do this from here every day anyway. So yeah, I'm going to speak to my family member more about that and see what I do and if it needs to even be overthought. And I notice within myself, and this relates back to the 5 internal pillars of creative identity, regulation, artistry, direction and sustainability, that when I feel slightly burnt out, and I have been working very hard and working many hours with the term that I've been teaching, and it is coming to an end soon, I can ruminate more and I can go into mental loops. So I am studying my own internal process throughout this, because that's effectively a case study in itself, and maybe that right now the steps I can take are slow steps where I research via artist interviews. I gently refine my framework a little bit more. I've got a webinar in 2 weeks where I am introducing the first layer of practical tool help within the framework, which is daily anchors, which are connected to the 5 pillars. And I think that's enough right now. A gentle offering of my second webinar, a little bit of mentoring, free mentoring for artists alongside it, and really starting to position myself as an expert within the world of sustaining a creative life, as I'm learning to do it for myself. You know, it's this grounding, stabilizing energy that I'm looking to explore more, because I feel like it's a big part of my work and how I can help people. I also realised today within the CRADS framework that at the moment I've been seeing them as pillars, but actually if I see it as a circle, I was speaking to a student of mine who's been integral as part of this initial process, that creative identity is at the core of everything. It's like a circle in the centre of the circle, and I'll be showing some of these visuals in my next webinar. Creative identity, regulation is the onion layer after that, artistry, direction, sustainability, it goes in that order, in an outward circle, and that's your internal world. That's your the internal structure of an artist in its most basic form, and there are sub pillars and things to explore, but just to keep it simple and refined, if you focus on those 5 areas, every struggle you can imagine internally as an artist lives in that circle somewhere, and there are practical tools that connect to each part of that circle. And that's what I'm going to communicate in the next webinar. That's what I'll communicate within videos, educational videos I'm going to upload onto my YouTube. And the drive that has come online since the beginning of this journey is helping artists who feel fragmented or burnt out or confused about their direction, helping these people, and there's thousands, hundreds of thousands of you. I know how many of you there are because I was one, and I'm still one sometimes. Turning that energy into coherent, self-led, self-directed, confident, grounded, I know where I'm going, I feel better about where I'm going energy. Because when you have artists like that are in their power, that are not in their shame, that are empowered and not in doubt, in self-doubt, that's changing the world. That's making a huge impact on arts and culture over time. The next step of that is kind of working on the grid effectively, which is implementing this into curriculum and language that can be grounding, anchoring these fragmented souls into coherence through curriculum changes, through educational impact, through books, through courses, through everything. That's kind of, again, that's the long-term plan that I keep coming back to. But that's what fuels me, you know, to keep going. And I got back after a lovely shape-up haircut with my bestie, with Alexi, who's a podcast featurer. And I just started making the website. I've got it and I've bought it until this time next year. And it's a way for artists, whoever's interested in what I'm doing, they might see it through a website, or everything has this one funnel that they can join through the website. I can, give, eventually business cards or whatever to artists that I interview. So that's kind of their place that they can visit. And I can't believe I'm still awake, but I'm just absolutely gripped by this at the moment, which is beautiful. But I also need to start focusing more on my bodily functions, which I will start to do. I'm going to get a really good sleep tonight. But as you go onto the landing page of the Self-Led Artist website, it says, we teach artists how to make work, but we don't teach them how to build a life that can hold it. I'll say it again. We teach artists how to make work, but we don't teach them how to build a life that can hold it. And then there's this circular image of creative identity, regulation, artistry, direction, sustainability. And then underneath it talks about the platform and it being an evolving body of research, what the problem is that I'm solving, the work that I'm doing, the framework that I'm building, what it leads towards, who it's for, what you'll find within my practice and the ecosystem I'm building. And then it goes into about me, a bit more about my background, and then an opportunity to contact me and follow me on all of the socials. So it's just like it's like a hub that everything stems from. So I did that tonight. And it's going to be 1:45 in the morning soon, so I'm going to end it here. But that's the kind of the updates. I think over the next couple of weeks, my focus will be, before the next webinar, have a few more artist research conversations, publish one more piece of writing, and just ensure that the research, the back end of the research database is robust and ready to roll. And most importantly, refine the framework a little bit more. Refine the language, make it more precise, make it more impactful, and just fucking easy to understand for artists, you know. And then bring, for me, it'll be daily anchors. The next event that I'm doing is focusing on daily anchors, so I need to really refine those to the best of my ability. It's all iterative, and a lot of it will come out in the wash, you know. As artists teach me things, the more I speak to artists, the more I'm just like having light bulb moments when things are clicking. But I think those are the main aims right now. And the rest can wait. The rest will come with time. This isn't something that can be rushed. This is something over hundreds of conversations with artists becomes more eligible and reputable and research backed. And it's because I'm starting this from the beginning and I'm documenting fucking everything. It's just such an interesting thing. It's like it's being channeled through me. That's actually the best way I can describe it. It's a body of work. It's really the absolute definition of a body of work. There's the communication layer with YouTube. There's Substack, which is all of my writing. We've got a website, which is the full funnel for everything. TikTok's going to be a way of me reading some of my writing and then sending them to Substack and YouTube through those little clips. It's not to build an audience there. TikTok is not for that, but it's a beautiful way. And there's an art to social media, even, that I'm noticing, and how it can connect people in particular ways, and it's all connected. There is an online world that can be utilised here, and then you have the educational layer as well, you know. It's just one of those eerie moments, and I've said this I messaged my dad about it the other day, and I just don't think it's fully, I think bless him, I think he's trying to be supportive. I think some friends I've spoken to about this project are trying to be supportive. But I keep saying to them, like, no, I don't think you actually understand. Like, this is every piece of my life has led me here. It's so coherent. It's completely integrated. It's using every part of me in its most efficient way. Everything is linking to one another. Nothing is wasted. All of it is building in usefulness, in practicality, in refined language, in community building, in deepening of understanding, deepening communication, deepening my skills as an artist. And I need to, that's a good reminder that embodied artistry that I have, it's not a coincidence that I have that on my in my energetic bank. because when I get like this and I'm really into the more data research depths, my art and my expression can pull me out of my head into my heart and allow that intensity to settle into something that feels more balanced, you know. And then I'm producing for fucking artists, and I'm getting their vision to come out through the speakers, because that's what I do, that's what I can do for artists. And then I'm sitting with artists, and the artists are telling me the story I've heard for 15 years, and it's the problem that I'm resolving. And over time I will find ways to ease the ache and wounding of this shame that artists live with and creatives that don't fit in the system. This framework is actually long-term healing for so many, even though from the outside it doesn't look like a healing project. It looks like like my family member said, it's like, you're basically doing a PhD. I'm like, yeah, on the surface this looks academic, but on a spiritual, heart-based level, this is nothing but healing. Okay, I'm going to bed. Ciao, ciao.